Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Mitchell Ringos. With the conflict in Ukraine continuing, a vigil was held at the International Friendship Gardens today to show support for the Ukrainian people in this tough time, which saw many speakers, including Mayor Bill Morrow, take part. Jessica Clement has more.
A crowd of over 150 Thunder Bay residents gathered around a Ukrainian monument located in the gardens to show their support. Many in attendance were seen in blue and yellow, holding the Ukrainian flag, as well as listening and praying along with local priests. Vigil organizer Christina Leger said she felt compelled to bring others to the monument to pray after noticing the low amount of foot traffic through the area.
And within 3 days, it just snowballed into this event that was out of my control. It was, God's purpose for people to pray for those in Ukraine. It has a really high population of Christians, so it's part of their faith to pray, and it's part of our job as, people of faith to pray for others who are in time of need.
Many local Ukrainians got emotional talking about family members and friends who are still trying to escape Ukraine, with one Ukrainian in attendance recently having left the country to seek refuge with her family in Thunder Bay.
And I'm so very emotional for my people that are in Ukraine. My grandma, she's still fine. My whole family, it's not good.
She came last night at 3 a.m. and she escaped to Poland right before every night she heard bombing going off. And we're so lucky to get her over here.
And with such a huge turnout, many felt overwhelmed by the amount of support the Thunder Bay community offered.
It's important that people come out. It's nice to see everyone sort of come together, young and old. It's good to see some of the kids from our dance group, Zoria, still coming out and supporting the cause.
It warms the heart, definitely. Having family in Ukraine and being of Ukrainian heritage, it's very important to see that it's not only Ukrainians that are here.
Jessica Clement, TVT News.
New qualifications proposed for firefighters are being met with opposition from some of the leaders in communities served by volunteer firefighters. Their concerns are twofold: the cost associated with providing the training and the amount of training that equates to a full-time job. Adam Riley has the details.
Almost all of the communities across the Northwest rely entirely upon volunteer firefighters to keep residents and the motoring public safe. But a proposal that will see an alignment with the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, professional standards doesn't sit well with some North Shore region leaders, with many noting it doesn't work for volunteer fire departments in smaller communities. Scriber Mayor Kevin Mullen says while he agrees with the concept in principle, he is concerned those requirements could drive down recruitment.
If you're a small volunteer fire department, you already have a small group of people to draw from. And if the volunteers see that they're going to join the fire department, but they're going to spend their life training, then maybe they're not going to want to join the fire department because they already have to train if they're working somewhere else.
In Greenstone, the concerns over costs are fueling doubt over the sustainability of its fire department, which consists of 4 stations in 4 communities with at a minimum 15 firefighters stationed in each, a personnel equivalent of Orangeville, which has 6 times the population of Greenstone and the tax base to fund it.
We need to have some help in making that happen if that's the desire of the province. Small communities can't afford this.
Nipawin Mayor Richard Harvey notes another predicament these new requirements pose revolves around the personal lives of volunteer firefighters. He says the increased service requirements, such as entering burning buildings to fight fires, something Nipawin doesn't do, would mean increased time training, which can take up to several weeks of a volunteer's year.
When you have somebody who's volunteering, taking time away from his or her family to be there for the community, and then you're telling them that they have to take their holiday time from their full-time day job, they have to take that holiday time, and instead of spending time with their family, going on vacation, they have to then go to training so they can volunteer. That is just totally not sustainable for volunteer fire departments.
A letter from the Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association to Ontario Solicitor General says while it supports the creation of the firefighter standards, the province should create standards specific to Ontario and that they be cognizant of the needs of volunteer fire departments, requesting that funding for certification requirements be made available for communities that will face financial burdens and that training deadlines be extended until 2026 for 100% volunteer fire departments. Adam Riley, TBT News.
And those worrying about cost associated with these new requirements can rest a little bit easier, as this afternoon Solicitor General of Ontario Sylvia Jones presented the new program reimbursing municipalities for fire services provided on Crown land that will see the province allocate $50,000 in funds yearly to help northern municipalities recover costs associated with responses into areas without fire protection services, such as search and rescue, medical, motor vehicle collision, and property fires that are not covered by any other funding agreements. We will have the full story for you tomorrow on the late edition at 11. The increasing cost of food is especially being felt by organizations that are working to address food security in the region. Food distributors say their costs have skyrocketed in a number of ways, including packaging and an increase in oil rates and fuel and electricity. Lee Noonan has more.
Community organizations that deliver food-based programs in and around Thunder Bay are seeing their budgets stretched thin, not only by sharply rising food prices, but also by supply shortages and increased transportation costs. One such organization is the Regional Food Distribution Association, which provides food hampers to food banks and First Nations across northwestern Ontario. Executive Director Volker Krom says that in some of the northernmost communities they serve, he has seen food prices triple and the cost of gas over $1 more than we might see in the city.
We have had to increase costs in packaging and food purchases, fuel pricing. Now we have refrigeration costs, the electricity costs, the gas prices have all impacted our operations. We've had to hire more staff because our inability to keep up with the demands not only in Thunder Bay but across the region.
Krom says the RFDA was already over budget last year, and he's expecting his expenses to increase by 25% over 22-23. Erin Beagle, Executive Director of Roots to Harvest, says the issue is much broader than just food. She says that mental health can suffer as well when income supports like OW and pension plans don't keep up with the rising cost of living.
Do they pay their phone bill, or do they get groceries this week? Or do their kids get to go on this, field trip, or, do they have lunch for food, or food for lunch, sorry. So they have to start weighing out the choices, and that becomes really stressful.
Beagle suggests that as individuals, the best way to help is to show compassion and pressure the federal and provincial governments to support programs like basic income. In the meantime, she predicts that organizations like Roots to Harvest, Dewdrop Inn, and Shelter House will be looking for support to continue filling the gap.
So you'll see all these agencies being like, actually, we're still doing fundraising, here we are again, because the cost of running our programs is going to go up too. And that's just how it works. If we want to give people fresh and good and nourishing food, we have to be able to pay for it.
Where we used to ask for food, primarily now we're saying, please, the money for transportation and storage is much more important.
Both the organizations that feed people and the income-stressed populations they serve are going to have to start making difficult choices between economic and more nutritious food options. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
Following Monday's announcements of new detox beds in Thunder Bay, Associate Minister of Mental Health and Addictions Michael Tibolo was in Sioux Lookout Tuesday to announce supports for addictions recovery in that community. The province is bringing $4.2 million to assist area mental health and addiction service providers to expand access to 37 new addiction treatment beds in the municipality, which serves as a hub for many remote communities. The funding is being allocated to the Economic Development Corporation for the Sioux Lookout Friendship Accord, an agreement founded in 2017 between Sioux Lookout and the communities of the Lac Sioux, Slate Falls, Cat Lake, and KI First Nations. Tibolo says he is hopeful the beds will be activated as soon as possible, noting the SLFA has a plan already.
We did this in a way that we sent out for a request for proposals from different communities to see what they could provide to us without having to make long-term investments in bricks and mortar. Because again, if the capacity is there, and we found that there's a need and there's capacity here for us to be able to open these 37 beds. So the hope is they'll be opened very quickly.
We see the needs of many people as they come to travel through, live in Sioux Lookout, and it's a large population that has been really probably the most socially marginalized in terms of the social determinants of health, the most marginalized population in Ontario, the remote communities of the north.
Lawrence says municipalities tend to not deal directly with mental health and addictions issues, but can act as a bridge to advocate and assist with initiatives like this. Thunder Bay City Council has approved the purchase of what could be the last diesel-fueled buses in the city. It happened at Monday night's meeting and adds 4 new specialized transit buses to the fleet. This authorizes just over $800,000 in spending for the buses through the federal and provincial governments will be covering most of the cost. As for Thunder Bay, they're on the hook for about $212,000. But Councillor Rebecca Johnson questioned why the city is still purchasing buses powered by diesel fuel, with Fleet Services Manager Doug Glenna providing some good news.
There's certainly for us, for me, a health and safety concern, things that we would have to do and put in place, and I don't know the order and time frame that we could do that. I do believe that it would be somewhat inflammatory to try to enforce the COVID regulations.
We're not looking to set up potentially confrontational situations. I see this as maybe a potential lever that we as a group can pull, and potentially it can have some impact on slowing the spread of community spread of COVID-19.
The electrification report will outline how the city will decarbonize its bus fleet with a current commitment to electrify public transit by 2035. The official Lappy Vintage Snowmobile Club hosted yet another vintage sled show, this time at the Arthur Street Canadian Tire. Around 35 sleds recently made an appearance in public last Saturday at Dawson's store, and with such a good turnout, they won up that record, seeing around 50 sleds at the Canadian Tire Showcase. Many Thunder Bay residents made their way down to get a glimpse of the one-of-a-kind snowmobiles you can't find nowadays. With many of the sleds also being restored to original condition, club and event founder Christian Ward says it's not just a show, there is also prizes.
So we have 4 classes. We got People's Choice with a $200 gift card. It comes with a trophy. And then we have Most Popular Rat Sled. That's $100 with a trophy. We have Best Restoration, then Best Survivor as well, $100, and then trophies as well.
Now joined by sports anchor Kurt Black, another good day for local hockey.
Yeah, the North Stars had their hands full with the league's leading scorer last night. We'll have the highlights right after the break.